Welcome to the Growth Through Adversity podcast, where men are forged, not coddled. Here we dive deep into the path of true transformation in pursuit of physical, mental, spiritual, and temporal growth. We talk training, nutrition, business, mindset, and spirituality. We embrace strength and we loathe ease. We reject weakness in every form and cultivate power, the will to power itself. This is the rebirth of modern man. Raw masculinity, tempered by reason, virtue, and right action, because nothing of value is earned without sacrifice. Let's begin our apotheosis together. Welcome to another episode of the Growth Through Adversity podcast with your host, Ragnar the Warwolf. What is up, people? So this is the next in my Primal Foundation series. So I am going to put these together as a YouTube series. Eventually, it'll probably be a private playlist. But for now, we're just working our way through them. We've made it through all the nutritional foundations, and now we're going to start talking about training foundations. And number one, what I want to go through here is training splits and how to put a workout program together. So we're not really going to talk about like exercise selection, which exercises to do in your program, but we're going to talk about how to structure a program for maximal efficiency. So we're going to talk about volume, we're going to talk about intensity, and we're going to talk about different splits. Now, for you guys that don't know, a split is just how we spread our volume out over the week. Some common ones are upper, lower. You're doing an upper body day, a lower body day, repeat, so forth. Full body, maybe 3 times a week. Push, pull, legs. So there's all different kinds of splits, and this is how we're just going to organize our training over the week. So we're not just going into the gym, grab ass and lost, not knowing what the fuck to do. So we're organized, we're structured, and we're getting maximal return on the time spent in the gym. So the split is your framework. The goal is always progressive overload and hitting enough weekly volume to force your body to adapt. The split is the framework that's going to make that happen. So it really doesn't matter whether you train 3 days a week or 6 days a week. What really matters is total aggregate volume spread out over the week has to be aligned with your goals. And we're going to talk about that. So you can do less for more days or you can do more for less days. But really what matters is getting the right amount of volume to where it's not too little volume to give your body the stimulus it needs to adapt, or so much volume that you can't recover from it. That's what we call junk volume. And generally, people are doing one of those two things, and it's why they're just staying stuck, staying plateaued, not really making progress, not seeing changes in their strength or in their body, is because they're either not doing enough or they're doing too much, and their body can't recover from it. So I'm going to help you avoid those two. I'm going to help you avoid those two mistakes that I see all the time. So number one, let's talk about training splits. One of my personal favorite training splits that is always a go-to, always very effective, is going to be a 3-day full body split. So this is absolutely perfect for beginners or perfect for busy men that just don't have a lot of time to fuck around and they need to maximize time in the gym. It being full body, you can rest very little between sets because you can organize it to where you go from one muscle group to a very different muscle group. You can superset stuff together and you can really maximize your time efficiency. The downside is it is pretty brutal. Doing a full body workout, hitting your whole body 3 times a week, especially with short rest, is definitely brutal, which is great for fat loss, great for expending a little bit more calories, but it can be psychologically draining. That's just kind of what I found. So in this, we're going to train every muscle group 3 times per week. And this is so good for frequency. So frequency, and it's even better for like the frequency to recovery ratio. So you're hitting everything with a whole lot of frequency, which the more you hit a muscle, the more it's going to grow. Studies have shown that repeatedly. But you're also getting enough recovery because you're spreading it out. You're taking a rest day in between each of your workouts. So you're letting your joints recover, you're letting your central nervous system recover, and you're letting your body recover, which can be super, super important. So like I said, it's easy to recover from, and it's limited volume per each session. This would be something like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, full body split. Now, kind of like the next step up from there is going to be an upper lower full body split. So it's going to be very similar. You're going to do an upper body day where you hit basically all of your upper body, your chest, your shoulders, your arms, your back, and then you're going to do a lower body day where you hit your legs, your quadriceps, your hamstrings, your glutes, and your calves. And then you're going to do a day where you hit both, so you can hit some of the little accessory movements that you missed, things like lateral delts, rear delts, some of the weird little movements that you might have missed in there, and just make sure you're getting enough volume and you're getting enough frequency to grow. I really, really like the 3-day upper lower. It's currently what I'm using myself. It's a great split between being able to spread stuff out really good, being able to recover from that stuff, but also saving yourself some time every week. That's not going to happen with the 4 or 5 day splits. So moving on, the next kind of progression from the 3-day upper lower is going to be the 4-day upper lower. Now, this is probably for like the ratio of the most return, most ROI. So you're going to get the best results with a split like this. This is going to be really good for intermediate lifters to advanced lifters. It would go something like upper body, and you can be a little bit more specific. So the way that I do my upper lowers like this when I have 4 days is I'll do upper body, I'll do chest and back on my first day. And then Tuesday would be like a lower body, maybe posterior chain emphasis. So things like deadlift, we're going to hit the glutes, we're going to hit the hamstrings, maybe throw in the calves, or maybe we'll do the calves with the quads. Doesn't really matter, but we're going to have a back dominant leg day. So it's going to be our ass and our hamstrings. And then we would rest on Wednesday. So you get this little recovery reset day in there. And then Thursday, you're back to upper body, but then we're going to do like shoulders and arms. So again, you have a lot more time spread out throughout the week, so you can work in more volume and you can do it more intelligently. And then Friday is going to be like quads and calves, right? So you're able to really emphasize and specialize on all of these body parts, but you're also able to get enough frequency where they're getting trained multiple times a week. And it's just an excellent split. It's a great balance between frequency and recovery. And again, I think like this is going to be super optimal, and this is going to get you like absolutely the best results. The trade-off is it's going to cost you more time. It's going to be slightly longer sessions, and it's going to be 4 days in the gym versus 3 days in the gym for only really a marginal, really a marginal improvement from a 3-day split if you're working your ass off on those 3-day splits. So another one that is pretty popular, or that I kind of like too, if you insist on doing 5 days a week, this is going to be for advanced lifters who just love being in the gym and love training. It's going to be a 5-day push-pull legs or an upper body, lower body arms split. So the way that would work, it would be push-pull legs, day off, push-pull legs. So it would come out 5-6 days a week, depending on how the week was split. And then the upper lower would be Mondays upper, Tuesdays lower, Wednesdays arms, Thursdays upper, Fridays lower. And again, spread out kind of like we did the other 4-day split, but we would just consolidate all the arm work to that Wednesday. So again, this is going to get you a lot more. This is going to make you able to do all the volume you need to do, maybe work on the top end of volume. It's going to be able to throw in a lot of different variety, use a lot of different exercises that you wouldn't normally be able to use. The downsides are recovery can become critical. You must manage fatigue. You must manage stress in your outside life. And there's also a really high time demand. So being in the gym 5 days a week isn't really conducive to my schedule personally right now. And a lot of the guys I work with have got careers, they've got families, they've got a lot of shit going on, and it's hard to get there 3 days a week. So thinking about 5 days a week just isn't really ideal. And then one of my least favorites, I think it overdoes it, but I'll throw it out there, is the 6-day push-pull legs. So you're just doing the push-pull legs twice a week. So it would be like Monday through Wednesday, maybe Thursday off, and then Friday through Sunday. This is if everything is perfect. If your sleep's perfect, if your nutrition's perfect, if your recovery's perfect. And this would be maybe more for like people that are prepping for a contest or are like, training for actually really training for something rather than just the recreational lifter. This is, or the health-based lifter. This is generally way overkill in my opinion, but some people like it. Overtraining and overreaching is definitely a risk here if the diet and the recovery aren't dialed in. So you can't fuck around on this. 6 days in the gym, your body's getting very minimal rest. And even more than that, it's 6 days lifting. So you're going to be doing a lot of damage to connective tissues that take a lot longer to heal. So how your program's put together and your programming has to be super gang tight, or you're going to end up with bicep tendonitis. You're going to end up with some kind of tendonitis or overuse injury, which sucks. So number two here is going to be understanding the volume, intensity, and frequency, right? So this is going to be understanding the underlying principles that govern how we're putting our training programs together. So volume is in simplicity is it is sets times reps times weight. That is your total volume. So an easier way to calculate volume is in sets per week, right? And you're also thinking about working sets, not really your warm-up sets. So that's something you got to bear in mind. So for hypertrophy or muscle growth, what we generally want to aim for is somewhere in the 10 to 15 hard sets per muscle group per week. So these are your working sets, not your little fucking warm-up sets with 93 pounds on the bench press. These are your actual working sets where you're actually grinding, or your walk-up sets. Your walk-up sets will count in this too because they're giving you stimulus. So an example would be, so we're going to look at it, and this is how I build programs for you guys. I'm going to look at chest. I'm going to say, okay, how do I get to between 10 and 15? First, I'm going to decide how new they are. If they're brand new to lifting, I'm probably going to target around 5 sets per week to start, and then we're going to taper up to 10 over time. But if you're in that kind of intermediate phase where you can kind of push your body pretty hard, you know the basic movement patterns, your body's broken in, then you're going to shoot for that 10 to 15 mark of hard sets per week. So we're going to look at something like 3 working sets of bench, 3 working sets of incline bench, 3 working sets of fly. So that gives us 9 sets right there. All we need to do is stack in a couple more chest sets there, and we're at that between 10 to 15 working sets per week. Now, you saw what else I did there. So is I spread that out over the course of the training day. So maybe one training day we're going to do a bench press. The next training day we're going to do an incline press and our flies. Maybe we'll do a bench press and a chest press on Monday, and maybe it'll be incline press and flies on Wednesday. So we're spreading that volume out over the week so that we can recover from it a little bit better. Frequency describes how often you hit a muscle on a weekly basis. So what studies have found is that two times a week is truly ideal for most. This is a sweet spot. 1 time a week isn't enough. That's kind of like with the bro split, where you train 1 muscle group per week. That used to be really popular. Some bodybuilders still use it to great effect. I'm not saying it doesn't work, because it does, but what most studies have found is that the more volume you do in your workout, the more returns you get. But there does become a point where too much volume becomes junk volume. And so frequency, spreading it out to where we're hitting everything twice a week, just the muscles are generally recovered in about 48 hours. Sometimes they take longer if you break them down a lot, but they're recovered enough to work them again. And also, if we're changing planes and exercises, we're putting slightly different load and stimulus on those muscles, hitting slightly different muscle fibers. And so we're able to work more frequency and more volume into our training program. Now, intensity. This is the most important thing when we're talking about training. You have to train close to failure. So RIR stands for reps in reserve. So on 2 sets of every exercise that you do for each muscle group, you want to take your set to within 1 to 2 reps of failure. So you want to leave just 1 to 2 reps in reserve, right? If you pushed 1 or 2 more reps, you would fail. So you want to train close to failure for 2 of your working sets for each exercise that you're doing. So if you can do 10 reps, going leaving 1 to 2 reps in reserve, you would do 8 or 9. So you wouldn't go 10 reps, you would fail. You're going to push to 9. And that 9th rep is going to be like, it's going to freeze halfway up, and you're going to be shaken, and you're going to have to push through it. That's how your last rep should look on at least 2 sets per every exercise that you do throughout the week. It's so much more important than just doing a ton of sets that are just like garbage sets just for the number. I would rather do, honestly, I program for my clients very regularly, just 2 sets. And like after they're warmed up, it's like, okay, all the other exercises after that, it's just 2 sets. And I want you to push yourself as close to failure as humanly possible without actually going all the way to failure. So you don't need to kill yourself every set. You do need to warm up very good, but you really, really have to push that intensity for at least 2 of your sets per every exercise that you do. So again, training like this, your workouts can be shorter, but they have to be very high intensity, and this is going to help you maximize your progress. training close to failure is what really makes muscles grow. That's just the truth. That is the stimulus, that is the overload that tells your muscles that, hey, you don't have enough fibers, you're not strong enough to move this weight, we're pushing really close to a point where you can't do it. And so your body overcompensates by growing more muscle tissue, by starting a cascade effect that's of hormonal signaling that teaches your body to use the protein you're taking in to build new muscle tissue. Oh man, people are calling me. That's ridiculous. All right. So cardio and recovery integration. So this is another big question. Cardio is not the enemy of gains. You just want to manage it, right? And I always say recovery mismanagement is the enemy of gains. If you're not recovering properly from your workouts, if you're not getting enough rest, if you're not eating the right foods, eating enough protein, like that's what's gonna kill your gains. For like strictly body composition, if you're just trying to build muscle, burn fat, I have found that 2 to 4 moderate cardio sessions a week, so we're talking 20 to 40 minutes using LISS, so low intensity, steady state cardio, think incline walking on a treadmill, is going to support your recovery, not crush it, and it's going to help just up your metabolic load a little bit to kind of increase the amount of fat that you're burning on a day-to-day basis. Now, with that being said, it's obviously not the only form of cardio. There's high-intensity intervals cardio. There's all kinds of different cardio. But for just strictly physique reasons and for just strictly growing as much muscle as possible and burning fat in the process, LISS is going to be your best friend. For performance, you're probably going to want some high-intensity cardio intervals to kind of get your VO2 max up and to be a little bit more explosive and have a little higher threshold cardio ranges. So that's kind of going to be customized to you and what you're trying to do. And then last but not least here is like tracking and progress markers. So you have to be tracking your lifts on a weekly basis. Get a logbook, upload an app, whatever it takes, but you have to track your reps and your sets, reps, weights, because if you're going in there every week and you don't know what you did the week before, you're not going to be able to progressively overload. You can, as you get more advanced, you can rate your sets using RIR or RPE, a rate of perceived exertion. That's a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being 100% intensity. That means if you did another rep, you would fail outright. 1 being the opposite of that, just 10% intensity. So most sets are going to occur somewhere in the 7 to 9 RPE when you're working hard enough. So you can track it like that. But the main thing that you really want to see is progressive overload. So every week you want to be adding a little bit of weight to each of your lifts or adding a rep or 2 to each of your lifts. And the only way you're going to know if you're doing that is if you're logging and tracking your lifts on a weekly basis. If not, you're pretty much just wasting your time. You're just going in there guessing. So trends to watch for. If your strength is going up, that's a really good sign. If your fatigue is rising and your performance is dropping, you're getting weaker, that probably means you might be either under eating, stressed in your normal life, or your body is just stressed from the training and you need to do a deload week where you cut everything down and kind of give yourself a little active recovery. So split doesn't necessarily, to conclude here, split doesn't necessarily matter. It's a lot about personal preference and what works best for you, but consistency, intensity, and volume do. So 10 to 15 sets per muscle per week is the sweet spot. You want to train yourself really close to failure. You want to make sure your recovery's dialed in, your nutrition's dialed in, and you want to track everything. You can improve what you don't measure. So if you're trying to build a training plan that fits your life and gets you real results, but you're stuck and this doesn't really make sense to you, go ahead and message me coaching on Instagram at thebeastwithin9, and I will reach back out to you and see what I can do to help, because programming is everything. Obviously execution is everything. You can have the best program in the world. If you're not taking your ass to the gym, it's not going to do a fucking thing for you. But programming is really the driving force to progress when it comes to this gym life that we're living out here. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Instagram, I don't know if I got, nope, we're good to go. I appreciate you guys so much